So welcome, Christine, back to the Zoom room. Nice to have you here. So let's have a look at today's quote and related teachings briefly, and then we'll have a look at our lesson. So give me a moment just to get the live stream going and linked up so people can access it from the email. Okay. So. Okay, so share my screen with you. Yeah, if you can read that quote, start with.
Here, bring your wounded hearts. Here, tell your anguish. Earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. Thomas More.
Do you want to keep reading today? We'll try a different format. Do you want to read the couple of paragraphs there?
Okay, I'll bring the microphone closer to my mouth and maybe it will sound better.
Sounds fine. It's okay.
I've listened to some recordings and it sounds quite muffled. Is that better?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Today's quote by an Irish poet and philosopher talks about the power of heaven, which can also be called the state of pure formless awareness of perfect love. To heal any emotional wound, anguish, or sadness. These falsities simply fade away when they are brought to the light of this true awareness. In today's bonus recording of a live session held in 2021, we discussed the relationship of this pure formless awareness, or God, to our true self, or Christ identity, and the Holy Spirit, using the following diagram drawn by John.
Well, so there's that's how he depicted pure formless awareness at the top, God, no separate identity, revelation, grace, and you've got Christ self. Christ vision, I think, should really be underneath Christ self, but anyway, it's in the same sort of order. And based on this, I then produced this diagram. Then you have flat land, the dream, the illusion, the projection, Holy Spirit being the intermediary between the worlds. And so then I created this one, cleaner, more expanded version of that. So at the top level, now in course terms, this would be called level 1. Level 1, not Yeshua doesn't call it level 1, but Ken Wapnick, who was probably the first teacher of the course, he termed it, a level 1. Okay, Elaine's joining us shortly. You'll be happy to know. So this is absolute reality. This is the infinite absolute reality that's called by many names, which you can read there: God, Father, Heaven, Truth, Oneness, Being, Pure Formless Awareness, and Perfect Love. We normally call it Source, Knowledge, Life, Spirit, Reality, the Now, Eternity. I haven't included that, but probably can't fit it in. Essence, Brahman, Nirvana, Revelation, and sometimes he calls it universe, but it's the universe of truth. So it's the ultimate reality, infinite absolute, and then that extends to us, and this is what underlies our true self, or Christ, which is the Son of God in Course in Miracles terminology of Christ. Some teachings will call it the soul. We call it the extension of source, extension of perfect love. The Buddha nature is another word for it. Your Buddha by nature or identity. The Atman is a Sanskrit term that's can be used to describe this true self. Higher awareness would be a sort of more new age term. So whatever you want to call it, there is an identity that is informed by this source underlies, which now can help us to perceive correctly. So the idea of the true self is it becomes a bridge between the worlds. With the true self, you can have true perceptions or Christ vision, which are the miracles or corrections or forgiveness or the letting go, as we call it. You could also call it flow. There's other words for it, like intuition and surrender, acceptance, salvation. The Course calls it atonement or at-one-ment, enlightenment, awakening, grace. These are all a process of changing our minds through changing perception. And now the Christ self, the true self, can engage in that transformation of perception. So the Christ self is able to perceive the world, but from the perspective of perfect oneness. So it becomes the bridge between the worlds. And so the Holy Trinity is an operating system for your life to help you to escape the dream and get back to pure formless awareness of perfect love, perfect reality. And it's a necessary intermediary. Otherwise, there's such a huge, gap between the duality of this world, of time and space, and all the experiences and circumstances and events and situations and traumas and successes and failures and etc. that go on here, and pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is completely formless by definition. That how do you bridge that gap? And this is where the Holy Spirit and the true self or the Christ come in to help you. So it's an operating system for your mind that's designed to help you to escape from the matrix. That's really there's Elaine joining us. So we also reviewed and discussed this diagram, again produced by John, which is an alternative to the descent into hell diagram, which is included in the course manual. So look at that. Probably on a link here. There's the diagram. Oh, that's quite an old version of it, isn't it? So there it is in the more
simplified.
Yeah, that's simplified. I added in some extra arrows because what was missing from this one, as I think John pointed out, was the ascent. It's all just going into hell. But actually, what you want to do is show the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of it all, which is what this one does. So the blue arrows are what take you from the thought system of the ego, which is everything in the red arrows and red boxes, and they help you reinterpret it. So you reinterpret it, reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit or remembrance of oneness. So that's what the Christ self is helping you to do. So whenever you see the effects of the ego's thought system, you simply deny them and you say these are not true, these are not real, and so that then becomes the bridge between the worlds, and you follow the blue arrow back to your source, to a state of pure formless awareness. It goes the other way as well because it changes your perception. So now you can perceive the world, but you perceive it differently from the perspective now of oneness. And so your perception is changed, and we know that perception informs our words and our actions. So then it changes your behavior. on this level, which changes the outcome of the dream. And so, you know, your life can very much change, transform, in fact, from this reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit. So let's just go back here, have a look at this diagram. So this is what John did, which has a few sort of steps on the way. I thought that was quite interesting. So this is kind of the ladder. So from God, love, oneness, you descend down, and pure formless awareness, you descend down the ladder. Individuality, the naive thought that I'm an individual. So the left-hand side is the descent down the ladder. And you've got ego commitment to separation, sin, fear, deserve to die, punishment. Then you have the Big Bang, manifestation or projection, and then you have, you know, the victimhood and the dream, the world, the illusion. All of those are steps on the ladder down into hell, which is living in the helpless, enervated little life of the ego, where separation seems to be reality, depression, sickness, sadness, death. You know, these all characterize that state. The other side, the ladder back up, is the decision to return home. So at the stage of victimhood, when you're experiencing the really negative effects of the ego's thought system as a victim of the world, you can change your mind. You can turn it around and say, no, there's got to be a better way than this. In fact, that is what kicked off the whole Course in Miracles. Helen and Shakman and Bill Thetford said there must be a better way than this, and than how we're currently living. And they asked for guidance, and the invitation was then answered by Yeshua and the Holy Spirit in the form of the Course. So it's a product of that decision to return home, decision to at least find a better way, because that's really the start of the return home. You might not really understand at that point that there's a home, but there must be a better way of living. And then you start engaging more with the Holy Spirit, trusting its guidance. So that's the counter to the reinterpretation of all the manifestations externally. You start reinterpreting the projections and saying, well, this is all just my projection, and these are lessons in the mirror of the world. And then we start going into seeing everyone through the Christ mind, as the counter to the ego's thought system of sin and guilt and fear and punishment. So we see everyone as innocent, as holy, as one with us, and that gives us an experience of grace, which is like the precursor to heaven, and that becomes the stairway to heaven. That's the descent into hell. So I thought that was quite well done by John. So I included the original diagram it's a bit rough, but the more sort of clinical version is in the course pack, in boxes and so on. So any questions or thoughts about that?
No, it's all perfectly makes sense.
Yeah. Good. And then we also reviewed the integral model we covered in the Art of Letting Go course, which is a theory of everything that summarizes what all the spiritual teachings and philosophies of the world say in a single, easily understandable model. So it's a model of illusion, because ultimately only truth exists, but it's a model that can be helpful because it connects the dots, so to speak. So it's showing that everything is connected to everything else. Your individual interior quadrant, which is the subjective self of your thoughts, emotions, memories, your states of mind, perceptions, and immediate sensations. This subjective self is connected to the objective material body, including the brain, anything that you can see or touch in time and space, and observable results. So this teaching is saying, this is primary. Subjective self and your mindset is absolutely primary, and then that will influence what's going on in the exterior world secondarily. And so they're connected. And so we see, as we change our mind, that miracles can show up. And it's quite well illustrated by the contour lines. So you have a thought on this level, and then you get a matching result in the objective world, which then will feed back and reinforce that thought was either, was true. That's, the nature of thought, is it self-reinforces. So at the lower levels, the ego is perpetuating itself, and we get caught up in these, very narrow circles of body, body orientation, mental fixation, addictions, and so on. And then as we start to expand our awareness, go into higher states of awareness, then generally a more expansive objective reality starts to unfold for us. More abundance, more flow, better relationships, and so on, as a manifestation of that change of mind. So the best way of consciously manifesting is to change your mind. As Yeshua says, seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind about the world. So we change our mind on a higher level, so we're no longer at the same level, and that shifts us. It's like a quantum shift into another reality, and that then creates a different kind of result. And then often we can experience seemingly miraculous shifts in our external world because of the shift internally. And then on the collective level, the same applies. So the society is made up of a collective of individuals who share values, meanings, language, relationships, culture, and then that affects the systems, networks, governments, technology, all the kind of rules, regulations, systems that govern this world. They're really a projection of a thought system, collective thought system, which then again feed back into that and say, well, this is correct. And so it becomes a closed loop. And that's what we've got ourselves stuck into, a very limited thought system, the ego's thought system. And then that seems to create the manifest observable results in our personal lives and collectively. And then we judge those as real and true, because that's what's being shown to us by our egos. But they are just a projection of the mind. There's nothing true about them. They're just a product of our individual and collective consciousness. And they can be changed if we raise our awareness up into the higher levels of love. So yeah, any thoughts, comments or questions on that model, Christine?
Can you explain what I and IT stand for, and ITS?
Oh, it. So that's it. Doesn't stand for
it? I and it.
Yeah, so I, in language, we'd say I, subjective self. I feel this, I think this. And in the exterior world, we say, well, it, my body, it. We don't call the body a person, we call the body an it, or an object, an it. So it's how we refer to it in language. I, it, and then on the collective level, it's, and we would be the collective.
To the plural.
Yeah, exactly, plural.
Bigger.
So I, we, it's, and its, and that's what makes up our world. It's in our language. It's embedded into our language. That we have these quadrants. So Ken Wilber was really, just observing the nature of life when he came up with this, but it hadn't been formulated in this clear way before. He sat down, I think he took a couple of years off, and he really just immersed himself in this. He didn't really speak to anyone. He was quite reclusive, and he just sat with all of his books. And I mean, he's a intellectual brain of note, intellectual mind of note. So he'd written a number of books himself by that point, and he sat down with all of his spiritual texts and philosophies, and he said, okay, I want to crack this problem, and I want to develop a theory of everything that describes, that is a map of this world that's much more accurate than our current maps that integrate all of these great spiritual teachings and philosophies and religions, and they can all fit within it. And he did a pretty good job. This is just part of the integral model, the quadrants. There's also levels, which is sort of indicated by the contour lines. So there's quadrants, there's levels of awareness within the quadrants, and then there's lines of development. So you might have an intellectual line, for instance, that's very high, strong intellect, but your emotional intelligence might be much lower, for instance. So that's, and then there's also states and types. So you have different states of mind. So you have waking, dreaming, deep sleep. You have states like love, peace, joy, happiness. Those would correspond, when that state becomes more like a permanent, that would correspond to a level. And then types. So, we also have types of people, the different types in various systems. So personality types, that's a classic one, Myers-Briggs, and then there's the Enneagram, and, okay, so this is type 1 or type A, type B, these are all, so his model includes all of those. But for me, the quadrants are the most interesting aspect of it, because it shows, the different aspects of reality that we have to deal with. Although these are illusory, the Course is saying to us, these ultimately don't exist, but they appear to exist within this domain. So, they're included in the model because it's virtually impossible to completely ignore them. So you have to relate to them somehow. And, understanding the model can help you do that. Understanding that primary reality lies here in the subjective I, which, if you go more and more into that, which is what we're doing with this non-dual Course in Miracles teaching, is that starts to automatically influence the its and the its. It radiates out. As soon as you go higher, that has an effect on the quantum field, and you might be inspired to say things and do things as well, which will then have an effect on the objective world. And that can have a world-changing effect, as we've seen with people like Yeshua, the Buddha, Lao Tzu, these great spiritual masters. They really profoundly changed the world based on their higher levels of awareness, and then the inspired actions they took during their lifetimes. Those created, 3 of the world's major religions. So they can have profound observable effects, and that is way beyond conscious manifestation. So the secret type theory would simply say, well, use the law of attraction to get what you want on the material level. But really, the assumption is that by getting what you want on the material level, that you're going to be happier. So you're still relying on the external world. So it's a pretty limited conception of yourself. You're still very much attached to the material world, and your inner state is reliant on what happens externally. Whereas a non-dual teaching says, yeah, there's a connection, and you will see the manifest effects, but those happen just of themselves. So you don't focus on I want or need this in the material world. You focus instead on the states of mind, the thoughts, the emotions, and your perceptions of everything, and you change those, and then the change in the external happens automatically, because it's all a product of your state of mind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So we also discussed the Martin Luther's movie, which we discussed yesterday. Talked about the mystic experience of grace, letting go of the belief in sin. As really the basis. I want to highlight, the key point of that movie for me was that when one person lets go of the belief in sin, as he did to quite a large extent, I don't think he fully let go, but he understood, he had a key insight that actually by grace we are saved. And so sin and guilt are ultimately not real, because there is redemption, and we don't have to do anything to earn that. It's by grace. It's just given to us, which is very much, in line with our teachings, isn't it? By grace we're saved. It's given to us freely by the grace of God. You can't really earn it. You just have to accept it. So the mind training comes in being able to, let go of your resistance to it and accept it. But his individual transformation led to the entire Reformation movement. So there you have one man really having a strong subjective internal experience, a mystic experience, as it's called. He then feels inspired to write his 95 theses, and he posts them on the door of the church at Wittenberg, which then kicks off this whole revolution in thought that ripples through Europe, because it was, a change, that Europe was ripe for change. And so you see how, on this integral model worked. His subjective experience became objective. He wrote it down. So whenever you write something, that, manifests it. And he had the courage to actually pin it up in a very public place on the door of the church, and was a direct challenge to the existing order, saying, okay, here are my 95 theses. It's a direct challenge to the doctrines of the church. And, he continued to publish more works. He published many books and papers. And I think at one stage he was a quarter of all the published works in Europe were his. And in those days, they didn't have copyright. So the printers just got hold of them and printed them and sold them. He didn't get any royalties. But he didn't mind. It was like, well, he just wanted to get his message out there. So it was a combination of the mystic experience combined with his, the courage to actually do something about it. And then there was a system, a technology that came into being then. The printing press was the, latest new technology. It's all old hat to us now, but then it was a revolution. It's like before that, everything was handwritten. Now suddenly you could mass produce things and print them and distribute them, to many, many people. And so a combination of, his inner mystic experience with writing it down in the exterior, that was his personal work, his writings, and then the system of the printing press, new technology, that mix is what combined to change the world. And now we, in some ways, in quite a similar scenario, aren't we? Because you look at the last 20 years, what's the major new technology that's come in? Internet, massive new, communication technology that makes communication global, so easy, that can, spread and disseminate information instantly around the world. We've never seen the likes of it before in human history. Now, literally instantly, someone can get a message from you anywhere in the world if they connect it. So communication becomes, instant, real time, which is a revolution in society. And so, that can be a catalyst in the same way as the printing press was for a transformation, but it still requires people to have the mystic experiences and then express them in their words and their actions, which is the call of, what Yeshua is saying to us. The time at one minute needs your thoughts, your words, your actions. So it needs to be expressed into the objective, so that people can witness it. They can witness it through you, and they can learn from that there is something deeper within them and within everyone. So it becomes, the world is just a learning device. And then we meditated on yesterday's workbook lesson as well. So if I remember right, it was a good session held a couple of years ago. So go check it out if you want to. There's not enough material already. That brings us to today's live session and today's lesson. So yeah, just before we move on to that, any questions?
No, I think
Oh no. Integral model. And you see, the reason I send out these emails and relate, various things is so that you can start connecting the dots and you can start seeing how it's all connected and interrelated. And actually what you're studying is one cohesive logical thought system, which makes sense, whichever way you look at it, from whichever perspective you look at it. It stacks up, it makes sense, and there's no contradictions in it. And then you start to accept that yes, there is this other thought system, which we call the Holy Spirit's thought system, and there is the true self, and it is a viable alternative. In fact, it's the only real alternative to the mess the ego's made of the world. And if there's only one other way, then it's a no-brainer. You must choose that way. So it's all designed, to help you to really choose it, commit to it on a deep level and say, yeah, I'm all into this. There is no other way. So, it's the Holy Spirit or it's death and depression and misery and suffering and pain. And I've done that and I don't want to do that anymore.
Mm.
So I choose to listen to this teaching and embrace it, accept it as the truth, and you strive to live by it every day. Okay, so to help us do that, let's have a look at today's lesson. Where are we? It's 170. Okay. So all right, so if you can read that. I've got it over here. So read it in there. Nothing there. I don't know what happened there. Let's fix that. So you read the original and then the alternative, and then move into paragraph 1. Just wait a moment. I'm just going to get recording going. Okay, so if you can read that for us, read the lesson.
There is no cruelty in God and none in me.
In its original forms.
And alternatively, there is no cruelty in perfect love and none in me.
So this lesson's all about the ego's cruelty and undoing that. So you want to read it in the alternative, personalized.
I never attack without intent to hurt.
You want me to zoom it in a bit, Christine?
No, it's fine.
It's quite small.
This can have no exception.
Yeah.
When I think that I attack in self-defense, I mean that to be cruel is protection. I am safe because of cruelty. I mean that I believe to hurt another brings me freedom. And I mean that to attack is to exchange the state in which I am for something better, safer, and more secure from dangerous invasion and fear.
Okay, so what's he saying there?
I never attack without intent to hurt. Therefore, I only attack to hurt.
Oh. I mean that I'm safe because of cruelty. And when he says it that way, it sounds bizarre, but it's the truth. I think that I attack in self-defense, because that's often the excuse, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm just defending myself. And it's the basis of many, of many wars. Oh, well, we're attacking in self-defense. Look at the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So Russia, the aggressor, but then Ukraine are now fully in it. They're counter-attacking and they do all kinds of, it's like, well, so you're just equally as bad as each other. It's like you're now fighting and believing in this thought system of defense and attack, which splits your mind off from your source and can never work. It's a thought system of death, which is, of course, why war brings lots of death. It's,
Definitely no freedom.
should be obvious by now, but no freedom. And someone like Putin, he's not free. He's in the prison of he's a slave of the ego. He might be leading a country, and people go, oh, he's so powerful, but actually he's enslaved by his ego, and those ego emotions will be governing him a large amount of the time, and he's probably a puppet to higher forces in this world. These guys are never acting just of their own accord. So, hardly freedom. He's actually a slave to the ego, and he's probably a slave to masters who are higher than him as well on the human level. Anyway, so that's just a demonstration of the thought system. You can see it. You can see it in personal relationships. You can see it in business relationships. You can see it in politics. You can see it in all interactions in human life. You see this thought system of attack and defense playing itself out all the time. And Yeshua is highlighting it, saying, well, does this really work? Can this really bring you freedom? So when I attack, you're saying, well, actually, that's going to make things better, which is a bizarre belief. How can it be better when an attack brings all these negative emotions? It hurts others, it hurts you. It brings counterattack. Inevitably, you attack someone. What do you expect? A counterattack. So then you fear. You fear the counterattack. How can this be better? Safer and more secure from dangerous invasion and fear? Well, it should be self-evident that it can't. But I like the way he states it. He states the ego's case very clearly and says, okay, so this is what you believe. Let's lay it all out. So you really look at it and, if you're honest, you go, yeah, well, actually, I have believed in that. We've all had attack thoughts. So in the attack thought, you believe that to hurt another will bring you freedom somehow. Does that really make any sense? So then he goes on, number 2, explain it further.
How thoroughly insane is the idea that to bend from fear is to attack. For here is fear, engendered and fed with blood to make it grow and swell and rage. And so is fear protected, not escaped. Today I learn a lesson which can save me more delay and needless misery than I can possibly imagine. It is this: I make what I defend against, and I make it real and inescapable by my own defense against it. I will only perceive it to be false if I let go of my defenses.
Okay, so What's he saying there?
That fear is what promotes one to attack. And fear doesn't disappear when you attack. It gets worse. It builds within one to swell and rage. And the lesson to learn is that I'm causing myself needless misery. I make what I defend against real and inescapable by my defense against it. So I will only perceive it to be false if I let go of my defenses. So the defense is actually an attack. And that is what I need to let go of.
If I defend myself, I'm attacked. That's another course lesson we did not so long ago. And in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So the old theme of, and he repeats these themes because it's a major one. You know, we defend, and then what do we do by our defense? Is we make our fear real. Why would we be defending if we didn't fear? And so in our defense, we've made the illusion real, we've made fear real, and we've seemingly justified attack in our minds. Whether we're being attacked or whether we're attacking, it's the same thought system, you see. So the victim believes in attack just as much as the persecutor.
Yeah, so...
And the victim can easily turn to the persecutor. So it's so easy for that switch to happen because it's the same thought system. Did you ever watch the Winnie Mandela movie?
No.
It's quite profound. So it shows a whole, pretty horrific journey. I mean, she was tortured. And so there was a scene somewhere in the middle of the movie where they were torturing her. And she, he was the white Afrikaans guy was really like degrading her and hammering her, verbally. It was more psychological abuse. I think there was some physical as well, but it was a psychological trying to break her down, basically trying to tell her that she's completely useless and worthless. So they showed the scene, and then at the end of the movie ended when you remember she got involved with those thugs in the 80s, and they killed her.
Yes.
Sorry, Christine, I think it just dropped out there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I'll just start that again. So did you get, you probably didn't get the tail end of that. So there was the scene at the end of the
the Winnie Mandela movie where she had those thugs. And
and so they showed the scene where this little boy, Stompy Saipai, was killed. I think they necklaced him because he'd been an informant or traitor. And so it showed her in exactly the same persecutor role as had been done to her. It was really well done. It was like, and they had little flashbacks to that scene. And it was like the victim had become the persecutor. And she was doing to that young boy exactly what was done to her years before.
wow,
Which is, a demonstration that it's the same thought system. And it's so easy to switch from the one to the other. The victim can easily become the persecutor. And we've seen that in history over and over. Nations that were once victimized now become the persecutors. Israel's a classic example. They were victims and now we're on top. Now we become the persecutors, and then they persecute the Palestinians, and they would argue with that they're not persecutors. But the behavior has certainly not been unconditionally loving, has it? In the Middle East, I mean, the whole construct is like, well, in order to survive, we have to defend ourselves. So then the game of defense and attack just carries on generation after generation. This has been going on for thousands of years. Arabs and Jews, Protestants and Catholics, these conflicts go on and on and on because people are obsessed with the thought system of the ego, of attack and defense, and they can't free their minds from the conception of it, that actually it's all not true because we are one. So how can you attack if you are one with the person? It's not possible in truth. It's only possible in a delusion, which is, of course, what the ego is made to substitute for reality. So it's a major lesson to let go of all defensiveness. Means to let go of all fear and all attack. And fear and attack are bedrocks of the ego's thought system. If you can let go of fear and attack, then guilt has to go, because guilt is the source of fear and attack, guilt and sin. So you see what he's doing. He's saying, okay, well, let's target aspects of this ego's thought system. Sometimes he focuses on guilt and sin, and then he switches it. And he says, okay, so let's look at the thought system of attack and defense, because that is a manifestation of the ego. But if you start undoing that, then that clears the way for you to let go of the underlying guilt as well, simply by realizing that none of it's true. So your defenses are defending what simply isn't true. Why would you defend what's an illusion? Except if you believed in it. Okay, so he says it seems to be the enemy outside me. And carry on.
It seems to be the enemy. It seems to be the enemy outside me that I attack. Yet my defense sets up an enemy within, an alien thought at war with me, depriving me of peace and splitting my mind into two camps which seem wholly irreconcilable. For love now has an enemy, an opposite, and fear, which is really the alien in the mind, now needs my defense against the threat of what I really am.
Okay. So what's he saying there?
Yeah, this business of it seems that the enemy is attacking and I need to attack back. And my defending attack actually sets up the enemy, and you can feel it as a war, splitting my mind between peace and something that's irreconcilable.
Mm.
So a war within happens, for love now has an enemy, and fear now needs my defense,
Mm.
because I really believe now that I am fear,
Mm.
or I am the opposite of love.
Mm.
Something like that.
Yeah. And this all happens internally. So the external world then seemingly is the trigger, but actually it's happening on a mind level. That split in your mind, which is then reinforced by the external enemy that seems to be against you. That splits your mind, and now you feel not one. You feel very separated. And we've all been there. We've all done this, haven't we? We know what it feels like. It's not a good feeling whenever you feel against someone or something, that you have an enemy, that you're being attacked, or that you're attacking anyone. It's the same thing, whether you're attacking or being attacked. Your mind is split.
Your thoughts are in attack, and very hard to find peace within.
You never find peace because
until you surrender and let go.
Yeah. So it's letting go of the system. You're saying let go of the thought system of defense and attack, because it doesn't help you. It doesn't serve you at all. But yet the world is based on this insane thought system. The world is based on the idea of so much of defense. You must defend yourself against the threats of the world. And we taught that from a young age. Oh, be careful, Put on your jersey because it's cold. You might get sick. Take your medicine because that's gonna, stop you from getting sick. And then, on and on it goes. As we get older, it becomes about insurance and pensions, and you've got to make sure that you have enough money and that you have a good job, because the world is a threatening place. And this is what it's the ego is trying to teach us. And fear, which is really the alien in my mind, now needs my defense against the threat of what I really am. So all of this is designed to perpetuate the ego's thought system and defend this thought system of fear, which is what he calls the ego's thought system, love and fear. Fear is just a placeholder for the whole thought system. And that's all that's really going on. Like, actually, it's all just a game to keep the separate self going. And there's no other purpose to it all. Just to awaken. Now, the only reinterpretation of that is, well, in this nightmare of defense and attack and fear and anger and hatred, sin and guilt and ultimately death, the only thing to do is to wake up from the nightmare and realize that it's not true and it's not real. Okay? Any other thoughts or questions on that? Christine, you with me? Well, okay. Well, let's continue. So I consider carefully the means by which my fancied self-defense proceeds on its imagined way. I will perceive the premises on which today's idea stands. First, it is obvious that ideas must leave their source. Whereas I who make the attack and must have first conceived of it. Yet I attack outside myself and separate my mind from the person whom I am attacking with perfect faith. The split I made is real. So what's he saying here? That seems like I project this out, my attack outwards. I who make the attack and must have first conceived of it. So any defense is actually, I'm defending against my own attack by this mechanism of projection. I project my thoughts out, they come back at me as seeming attack, and then I think I have to defend against them, which makes them real, makes the projections real. And I attack outside myself and separate my mind from the person whom I'm attacking. Perfect faith, the split I made is real. So we're seemingly attacking someone outside of us, it seems to be external to us, and the split in our minds seems to be real. That's what he's saying. And all of that is illusion. It's part of the projection perception mechanism of the ego that is just trying to convince us that the ego is real. So this got core desire of the ego to be separate that gets projected out into the quantum field. It comes back to us as these sensory perceptions, which we then interpret through the same thought systems. And now that thought system of attack demands defense and maybe counterattack. And so the belief in separation that made it, that projected it, also perceives it and creates the thoughts and emotions that underlie the perceptions of attack as real, of fear, of the need to attack back, and so on. And so it's a self-perpetuating cycle, and we reinforce it over and over again the more we play that game. And the only way out is to let go of the thought system in its entirety and recognize that the whole thing is illusory, it's false. Defense and attack are false concepts of the ego. They don't exist in perfect oneness. So he continues on in number 5, saying, next, I must bestow the attributes. So he's talking about how this ego thought system works. And next, I must bestow the attributes of love upon its enemy. So this is the enemy of love is fear. And fear becomes my safety and protector of my peace, to which I turn for solace and escape from doubts. Solace, we'll talk about comfort, solace and escape from doubts about my strength, in the hope of finding rest and dreamless quiet. So we turn to fear as our protector, as a source of comfort and escape from doubts. And yet it can't offer us that, because fear is not a comforting thought. Fear will always disturb our peace, and we can never find rest. So as love is shorn of what belongs to it and it alone, love is endowed with the attributes of fear. So then we reverse it and we say, well, now I fear love. And everything's gone upside down in our perception, which is why the ego is an upside down thought system. For love asks only that I let go of all defense is merely foolish, and then my defenses will crumble into nothingness. For this is what they really are. So if I can just let it all go, all idea of defense, then that undoes the belief in attack. If I don't need to defend against anything, then there's no attack in my mind. And then my defenses will crumble into nothingness, and the whole thought system collapses. when you realize it's illusory nature. But with love as enemy, cruelty must become a god. And false gods demand that those who worship them obey their dictates and refuse to question them. Harsh punishment is meted out relentlessly to those who ask if the demands are sensible or even sane. It is their enemies who are unreasonable and insane, while they are always merciful and just. So he's saying cruelty becomes a god. Gods are worshipped. In other words, we value them. We don't question the dictates. So the ego is a cruel god. It tells us that defense and attack are inevitable. And if we question it, then harsh punishment is meted out. And the ego is just a tyrant. They're enemies who are unreasonable and insane, while they are always merciful and just. And so, we see these thought systems acted out in the world. People believe they're in the right. They believe they're correct. Enemies are unreasonable and insane. We are merciful and just. But actually, the truth is, both sides, so war or interpersonal conflict, are equally at fault. Because everyone's believing in this false thought system of the ego, of defense and attack and fear, hatred, and so that denies love, and everyone is then bereft of love and suffering because of it. So then he says, today we look upon this cruel God. Today I look upon this cruel God of the ego dispassionately. And I know that though its lips are smeared with blood and fire seems to flame from it, it is only made of stone. It can do nothing. All right, let me just check the message from Christine. All right, so share screen again. So go back to lesson 170. So this idol made of stone is only made of has no life. as it's the denial of life. Therefore, it can do nothing. I need not defy its power. It has none. And those who perceive in it their safety. See their safety in it, have no guardian, no strength to call upon in danger, no mighty warrior to fight for them. And so he's saying people who think that the ego is going to protect them and defend them are deluded, and they will see that it is actually nothing. And it's a thought system that will just fail them time and time again. And this moment can be terrible, but it can also be the time of my release from abject slavery. I make a choice standing before this idol, false belief, perceiving it exactly as it truly is. Exactly as it really is. Will I restore to love what I've sought to take from it and offer to this lifeless piece of stone? Or will I make another false belief to replace it? For the god of cruelty takes many forms. I can always find another if I want to. So yeah, we can recycle this. The thought system of guilt, sin, fear, attack, offense and attack has been going a very long time. And we can find many justifications for it in the world if we want to. But freedom comes when we're willing to see through this illusion of the ego and collapse the whole thought system, recognize that it is all false and it offers us nothing in truth. Yet, he continues, yet do not think that fear is escape from fear. So yet I cannot think that fear is the escape from fear. Let me remember what the text has stressed about the obstacles to peace. The final one, the hardest to believe. Final one and the hardest to believe is nothing. And the seeming obstacle, the appearance of a solid block, impenetrable fear from beyond surmounting. The final one, the hardest to believe, the seeming obstacle, the appearance of a solid block, impenetrable fear from beyond surmounting. It's the fear of perfect love. It's the fear of God, the fear of perfect love itself, fear of God himself. Is really nothing. Because you can't really fear perfect love. Perfect love is perfect love and can only be known through love. So to fear perfect love is meaningless. So it's really nothing and has no meaning. Here is the basic premise which enthrones the thought of fear as my God. For fear is loved by those who worship it. And love appears to be invested. Cruelty now. Fear is loved by those who worship it, and love appears to be invested with cruelty now. Where does the totally insane belief in God's vengeance come from? Love does not confuse its attributes with those of fear. The worshippers of fear must perceive their own confusion in fear's enemy. And its cruelty is now a part of love. And what becomes more fearful than the heart of love itself? The blood appears to be upon its lips, and the fire comes from it. And it is terrible above all else, cruel beyond conception, killing all who acknowledge it to be their God. Wow. So yes, was telling us that the worshippers of fear must believe that love is terrifying and fearful. And this is why we have the fear of God, a vengeful, wrathful God. Cruel beyond conception, killing all who acknowledge it to be their God. All right. Hi, Christine. Welcome back.
Phew.
Darkness.
That's definitely a strange night for me.
Yeah, the ego is playing games. So I've kind of cracked on with it. I'm at number 10 of, I think there's 15 paragraphs because it's quite long. So,
and I've got 10% battery now. So it's linked up and it's charging. I don't know how healthy it is sitting with all this charging battery. But let me try another 20 minutes or so.
Oh, okay. Well, let's finish the lesson. So number 10, I've just read, he's talking about how love, how the ego fear will make love into a cruel God. And it seems to be cruel beyond conception, killing all who acknowledge it to be their God. So if we look at our diagram, sent into hell, you see that the concept of a fearful, wrathful, vengeful, and separate God is an integral part of its thought system, because it believes that it's sinned and it's guilty, and so something must punish it, and that something becomes the fearful God, which it invents. That is the God of the ego, and now the ego has made up this illusion of a God that is vengeful, wrathful, very, very much separate from us, and can condemn and even kill us. And this is the cruel God. All illusion. This is the idol made of stone. He says that's not true, but in the ego's thought system, it's very true. And we see this concept of God in many religions, the monotheistic religions, especially Judaism, Christianity, Islam. God is perceived conventionally, not the mystic versions of it, but in the conventional traditional religions as quite a fearful kind of super being who will punish his children for their misdemeanors. And so the concept of sin and guilt and punishment, and God seems to be cruel. And so he's saying here exactly that. Love seems to now be cruel. The worshippers of fear must perceive their own confusion and fear's enemy, as cruelty is now a part of love. And so this God of the ego is made in its own image and likeness. So, you know, when the Bible says, well, God created us in his image and likeness, the truth is we have created the false God in our own image and likeness. We've made it up based on our own misperceptions, or that we're guilty and sinful and fearful. And we then project that onto a fearful, wrathful, vengeful God, which is completely a miscreation and it's illusion. It's an idol. He says it's a God of stone. It has no life. The belief behind it is not true. But it can seem to be terrible. The blood appears to be upon its lips, and the fire comes from it. You know, vengeful fire and brimstone, that Old Testament God of really quite horrific, which I never really resonated with. I was like, what is this concept of would God really do that? But takes a lot of undoing to undo that terrible misconception of what God is. He said is terrible above all else, cruel beyond conception, killing all who acknowledge it to be their God. So this is a God that will strike you down and kill you. So who would take that as their God in their right mind? Well, no one. But then we're not in our right minds when we make that choice. So then he talks about choice. You want to read that? Number 11, the choice I make today is certain.
The choice I make today is certain, for I look for the last time upon this bit of carven stone I made and call it God no longer. I have I've reached this place before, but I have chosen that the cruel God remain with me in still another form. And so the fear of perfect love returned with me. This time I leave it there, and I return to a new world, unburdened by its weight, and not seen in its blind eyes, but in the vision that my choice restored to me. Yeah.
So
today I make a new choice for this stone idol of a God that no longer exists for me. This cruel God that seems to appear alongside fear of perfect love. I leave it there and return to a new world, unburdened in the vision that my choice has restored to me.
So he's asking us to make a clear choice and say, okay, I'm done with that concept of God, with the thought system of fear, defensiveness, attack. I'm ready to let it all go and return, to a new world where I see beyond these illusions. I see with vision, and the vision of Christ sees only love. And underneath all of these fearful appearances, is this loving awareness that's always been there. But it's a choice. So vision and perception come from choice. And we must make a choice to let the entire thought system go.
Moment by moment, we have to have that awareness that I'm choosing love, not fear. Yeah. I'm choosing to be happy and to feel joy and peace and calm. And watching the defensive reactions to situations that occur external to me, because that immediately puts me into defense and
Mm.
I'm back in that fearful state of a vengeful God.
Mm.
So it's to break down that image of this fearful God and recognize that I am innocent and filled with love and pure, perfect love is reaching out, and I must listen
Mm.
and remind myself to listen.
Mm. It's all just your own misperception. That's that's the comforting thing. Okay, I'm just deluded. This God I've made of cruelty, the God of vengeance, and the thought system of attack and defense and fear is all illusion. None of it's true. Not one bit of it is true. I just have to accept that to be free.
Mm.
But easier said than done, because it's very deep seated in the human psyche.
Yeah, it's conditioned from childhood.
Not just childhood, it's karma, it's many lifetimes. If you've been coming here for hundreds, maybe thousands of lifetimes, it's many experiences have seemed to confirm the ego's thought system to you. Over and over, that thought system's been reinforced. And now Yeshua's coming along and saying, none of this is true. Just let it all go, and you can be free, completely free. And the mind can't immediately grasp that. But we do it step by step, baby steps with these lessons. By practicing diligently, every day, you can undo a little bit more of it, or the ego's thought system.
Yeah, immersing oneself more and more into peace with these daily meditations and live sessions. It really does put one into a different thought system. Yeah.
And that's all you can do. Just keep practicing letting this go. And he gives us these lessons. And I've done this lesson before, and it's always quite a tough lesson, I find. Just like, okay, do I still have attack thoughts? Do I still value or defend attack thoughts? Do I still then value this God of cruelty? Because that's what he's saying. If you have defense and attack thoughts, you value the God of cruelty. And it's uncomfortable, because if you're still thinking in that way, then you'll see that, yes, I still do. So I still must be valuing this false God. The illusion's still not completely gone. But every time you do it, it reminds you, okay, but it's a decision, and the entire thought system's got to go. And I'm recommitting to that. It's long past its sell-by date. And that restores vision to us. Turn to a new world, unburdened by its weight, not seen in its blind eyes, but the vision that my choice restored to me. So that vision is Christ's vision, true perception. Say in the true perception. Okay, so number 12.
I could mention a little thing that happened today. Earlier, I talked about the prisoner that I put on a Metatron Cubes pattern, because the person who was employing him was very upset and perturbed because he's a Malawian who was arrested, and then they found on him that he had a false work permit to work in South Africa. So they took him from Greyton and stuck him in prison in Johannesburg.
Wow.
Awful place to be for a 26-year-old innocent Malawian man from Malawi working in South Africa illegally, as many do. what a horrific experience it was for the people who employ him. And, you know, they went to try and bail him out, no chance. You'll probably get a 6-year imprisonment, I think it was.
6 years. My God.
I think it was 6 years. And, or 6 months, I don't know. And anyway, so I put, first of all, we were trying to clear the courtroom and the judge presiding before the court case this morning, Trish and she was asking me to do this energy healing. So I put him, his name is Hope, and the courtroom, and the judge who would be presiding on this Metatron's cube. And I just set the intention that he be freed, put on a plane back to Malawi. Jono, within a couple of hours, an hour, I think, I got a whole WhatsApp telling us how the attorney had realized that all the guys that were being in court that day were going to be sentenced one way or another. So he pleaded with his defendant, with his person he was defending, to withdraw his plea and rather go for asylum status, which the attorney is now working on. And then they found out that the guy in 1918, when he came into South Africa, had appealed for asylum, and he had the papers on him. So he was freed of that court case and definite imprisonment.
Wow.
Under awful circumstances. And somehow maybe he will actually get off scot-free. He has to go into prison for another couple of days, which of course he hates. And it was amazing to see how quickly a miracle can turn things around that looked so awful this morning and this afternoon.
Well, well done for being the miracle worker.
Yes, and I don't take any credit for it because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just asking questions of what I should do as a distance balancing for this innocent man. I had a WhatsApp, a WhatsApp photo of his ID, so a picture of him. So I put my phone on the pattern, capturing his energy through that picture. So, this work is powerful, and one mustn't underestimate who we truly are. If we work with innocence and trust, believing that we've got all the forces and invisible forces behind us in the form of the Holy Spirit and pure formless awareness itself. I mean, because we just sent this guy love. See him with a bright, happy, sparkly face, with his eyes shining, getting on his plane and waving goodbye as he was going back to Malawi. That's all both Trish and I envisage is a positive outcome. And I could feel the doubt and the fear coming up within me, and I just pushed it aside, and I just stayed with my vision. And somehow the magic happened, which was far beyond my control.
Well, it's a miracle. No,
that was a miracle.
All a miracle, because you overcame your own fear, and you extended that to him, and then there was an outcome on the level of form. So if you look at, it's a classic example of this integral model in action. So you changed the objective, you went into the inner experience, your own inner experience, but there was a collective. It was you and Twish, and you brought him into it, and everyone, the judge. So there was a bringing in the collective energy, and you took it to another level. So you
Yeah.
transcended the level of that thought system of defense and attack, which really the legal system is about. It's an attack defense system, and you transcended it, and you said, no, actually there's a higher outcome, which is beyond fear. And then you visualized in form what that would look like. Okay, well, he's happy, he's smiling, he's getting on a plane. So that raised the sort of vibrational frequency. And then on the objective level, the attorney suddenly has a brainwave and something changes, and he says, well, we'll go for a silent. Well, he may not have had that thought if you hadn't done the work.
Yes.
Something shifted internally, on the mind level, which then manifested in the external. And given that law is just a mental construct. The whole thing is ideas and concepts, isn't it? That's all.
And they're harsh laws. They don't take people's feelings into account or the real story. You just
not at all. No, it's a very brutal, cruel thought system. I spent years ago. I spent one night in prison because I was a rebel doing. I didn't pay my license fee and my vehicle registration and driver's license. I didn't have vehicle registration. I was deliberate. I was like, well, I don't believe in the thought system, that governs us. There's a guy called Johann Jabed who thought all about the free man concept, that we're all free men in common law. I was like, okay, well, I resonate with that. If he can do it, I can do it. So I did it. I had a number plate saying I'm free. It was great. But of course, I was driving through a little place in northern KZN called Matuba, and the cops saw this and they were like, what? No, we've got to go check that out because it's not a proper number plate. And so then I like had to try and explain the whole thing to them, and after half an hour of explanation, eventually they just got tired of it and they were like, right, we're gonna handcuff him, pepper spray him, and stick him in the police van and take him off, which was a bit traumatic. But it was I'm really glad I had the experience, because I experienced that system firsthand. I remember being in the prison cell, and I was looking up at the wall, and there was this fist. They had this fist crushing, and they had like crime. It was crushing crime. It was like crushing crime into nothing, but actually the crime had just like bulged out on the sides. It wasn't anything, nothing. It was just changed shape. And what came to me was that the crime and the supposed defensive force against it, the police, were one. It was you actually had to let it go. The fist was holding on so tight that it kept the crime in place. So that was quite a good insight, in the middle of my prison cell. And then I got put in with 25 or 30 black gentlemen for a night, which was also, really, it was a real test of faith. I was like, okay, take a deep breath. I'm protected, I'm guided, and I was fine. And then I chatted to the guys in the morning. So a few hours until, fortunately I was only in for one night, and then we were going straight to the court, and it was, there's a bail hearing, and I got bailed out. So I only spent one night in, but I chatted to these guys. I thought, the system has failed them. It's so unfair. Some of them have been in for a number of years. They were still awaiting trial. They couldn't really tell me where their case was. They were just like, well, I don't know. The state gave me a lawyer, but I haven't spoken to him for months. And their lives are just being wasted in this really ghastly prison cell.
And their phones are taken away from them, so they can't contact anyone.
No, you can't. You're completely stripped of everything, and you're just in this prison cell with these other guys, and all of your rights are taken away. And it was like, this is an extremely harsh, cruel system. So the system produces, socio-economic conditions which stimulate crime, because these guys have no jobs. You know the story. There's no income. So what do? Well, okay, you've got to do something to feed myself and my family. So they turn to crime, and then that same system persecutes them. It says, okay, well now you're a criminal, and you've got to be put away for years and years. Instead of using your life productively, you're just idling it away in prison. I was really shocked by the cruelty of it. And this is the cruel God he's talking about.
Yes, yes.
That there is no compassion and no love and no nothing of any value in that thought system, and its manifestations are really harsh and cruel, and they deal with people harshly and cruelly, not as sentient beings, not as, well, you have feelings, you have emotions. Yes, you might have made a mistake, but a mistake doesn't mean that we punish you. A mistake means we help you to fix it, we help you to correct it. So let's rehabilitate you. We won't just stick you away. We'll try and rehabilitate you. We'll try and upskill you. We'll try and give you skills that could be useful, and use your time constructively. That's what it should be, rather than this punishment. No, okay, well, you've done something wrong, and now you're going to be punished for years. And I felt really sad for these guys. It was like, okay, I'm lucky. I had people who had money, and so they bailed me out. And then, I had the wherewithal to take on the system. And actually, 6 weeks later, I came back and I drove the judge out of court. He actually left the court, which was quite unusual. But it's because I had the intellectual capability and the knowledge and the resources. Like, I got the community involved, and most of them are just sitting ducks. They just have no hope. They're just condemned, and there's no defense against this. So I've experienced this thought system firsthand, and it really, I guess, it reinforced all these principles. It's like, well, this ego thought system and its cruel world has to go, and I'd like to be an agent of change in this world to try and change some of this, so that we no longer have these kinds of very harsh, cruel systems. But it begins within. You have to do the internal work and overcome your own fear. The night before I faced the judge, I had this dark night of the soul experience, and I overcame the fear. I went into the light, and I was like, it's going to be.
Yeah,
and in that moment, the battle was won. In that moment, that's when the judge walked out, because I'd overcome it on a mental, emotional level.
You see, those are the sorts of stories that really get it across to people what this invisible stuff is all about. It's mental, and you have to make a choice, and you have to visualize the joy, the peace, the happiness, and go of the fear and all the dark stuff. But it takes work.
Oh yeah, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because it was like, I took it. It was like almost deliberately tested myself. I didn't have to do all of that. Most people tell you got to be crazy. You're out of your mind to take on the system. But actually, it showed me the weakness of the whole system. Because if I can walk in and I can drive a judge out of court just by the power of my spirit and what I knew, then what's impossible? It really showed me the weakness of the ego's thought system, and that it could be confronted and transcended. You could overcome it,
and it made you stronger.
Oh yeah,
You overcame the fear. You had the experience, number one, and you overcame the fear, and you creamed it. That experience.
It was like a test of faith. It was really like, okay, you've got to face the fear directly, because I could have gone to prison if things had gone, pear-shaped. Could have gone to prison for 3 or 6 months. That was what could have happened. But that I didn't let that fear. It was like, no, I'm not going there. I stay in the light. I'm protected. What I've done is actually spiritually correct. the system is a an oppressive control system, and I'd done it as a symbol of freedom from this egoic thought system, and I stood by it, and I stood in the light, and claimed the Christ energy. And the guy, it was so interesting energetically, because it was over in like 20 seconds. It was extraordinary. I was expecting a full-on, like, okay, I'm prepared, I've got all my stuff, I know my stuff, I'd written notes, I'm like, right. And I was so psyched. I can't tell you how. I was just like, right, I'm going into combat here. Let's do this. I'm going to take this guy on. I'm ready for whatever. I was a spiritual warrior. And he couldn't face it. He was like, I'm just going to climb out of this. I was almost like, it was such an anticlimax. I was like, seriously? I'm all geared up for like the prize fights of my life, and you just disappear after 20 seconds. I mean, like, come on, like, seriously, I expected a bit more of a fight than that. And he just left. And no one understood it. All the cops who were there, they were there to testify, and the court secretaries and the prosecutor, they were like, what? He's the judge. He's not supposed to abandon his post. He's just left the court. They were like, everyone was totally confused. It was marvelous. The whole, it was like a serious anomaly in the system. And no one knew what to do, because they were like, well, the judge is in charge. Our job's to bring him here, and then he's supposed to, judge. And the judgment hasn't happened. He's left. What do we do? The prosecutor was like, get into the courtroom. I'm like, or what you going to do? I said, what you going to do exactly? You've already arrested me once. You brought me here. You couldn't answer. It's like, what you going to do? Because the cops couldn't arrest me again, because they'd already arrested me. I'd gone off on bail. So I just walked out. I was like, okay. My friend who ran this permaculture project in Matuba, he got part of the thing was we got the community on site. So there were like 50 people sitting with me in solidarity,
that's
no. So it was like, I'm not going in there on my own, no way. Because then I'm a sitting duck. It's like, right, I've got the community with me. There are probably 50 people. We've organized, it was an operation. I did a talk to them, and then I bussed them in. I hired a bus. It was a whole
amazing.
Yeah, well, it was just an interesting experience, to have done it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it properly, get the community on side, and there'd been friction between the community and the authorities, and so there was like, okay, so this guy's not just on his own. This could cause ructions, and I think the judge, who knows, I think he had an inkling of what I was going to do, and maybe he'd made a phone call, because the thing had been delayed by like half an hour, the hearing. Maybe he'd made a phone call or two, I don't know, but it was almost like he knew what was coming, and he had been told to walk out. He said, just leave this, because if this stuff gets out, it goes onto YouTube and stuff, then it's dangerous for the whole system. So let this one go. And that's why he walked out, I think, because they don't want to be confronted and challenged. So actually your whole system is a fraud. It's based on merchant law, which was introduced in the 16th century into common law, and common law is spiritual law, but merchant law is commercial law. So we've been governed by commercial law, and the whole statutory legal system is based on that fraud, and it's all part of this defensive defend attack system of the ego, which ultimately needs to be challenged and undone. So that was a little mini victory for the light, and it gave me a lot of courage and I hope to say the system can actually be undone. It is not invincible and indestructible. In fact, it's quite weak if you just have the courage to face it, because it's based on untruth. It's based on what's false.
Yes, amazing. A bit like that Martin Luther video that we had to watch on how he overthrew the church.
Yeah, and he had to face them. I mean, they would, he went to the diet of worms, it was called, and he had to face the trial, And they were like, will you recant on pain of death? If you do not recant, you will die. And he's like, okay, no, I cannot, because that would be to deny the truth that I know is true, and just to save my neck. And he said, I can't do that. I'd rather die than recant. So that's like hardcore, such commitment. These guys, the people like Martin Luther, and you can only huge respect, because they've walked the talk, man. They've really laid it on the line. They put their lives on the line, and they said, okay, the truth is more valuable than my personal individual human life. And when you go to that level of commitment, then you change things. He changed the world because he was willing to stand on the truth of what he'd said, and risk his life. Like, okay, well, if I must die, then I must die, because the truth is true, and the truth must come out. And that is my, I cannot recant, because basically they were asking him to deny everything he'd written. All of his ideas, no, sorry, that's all rubbish now, because we say so, and we're going to kill you if you don't agree with us. I mean, that's just, the ego's thought system of madness, oppression, cruelty, this whole system we're looking at, God of cruelty. And he confronted it, and he overcame it. And ultimately the church's power was undone, probably in that moment, the moment he stood up and he faced it, and he didn't give in to the fear. He had a spiritual epiphany. Apparently he went away, and he'd said, well, I've never heard God speak to me directly. And then they gave him a few hours to consider his decision. And he went away, and he prayed, and he said, then God came to him. And he had this obviously deep connection with spirits. And it said to him, you stand firm. You do not, give in. And I will protect you. Something like that. And, he trusted in it. And the outcome was that he actually lived. They didn't kill him. He ended up getting married and had a reasonably happy life after that. And he was a catalyst for the Reformation of Europe, and actually of the whole industrial age, really, because without the Reformation, the Renaissance wouldn't have happened, and the Renaissance was the precursor to the industrial age, which has now brought us here. So we're direct beneficiaries of that man's grace, his connection to source, and his willingness to walk the talk.
Powerful stuff, Jono. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is. We're all connected, and it's every person, like he's made an impact. That one-man plan that Yeshua talks about, he was part of that. He played his part, which then leads to other people to awaken. And now 500 years later, you can look back on his life, and you can draw inspiration and insight and courage from his experience.
Yes.
Which means that it's eternal. There's a legacy that he's left. Like this can inspire generation after generation, particularly in time like ours, which is quite a similar situation, because we've got an oppressive system that's been going for far too long, and that needs to be challenged and undone. And it takes people with courage to do it. Say, no, this is wrong, and stand in the light of truth, which is what Yeshua is asking us to do with all of these lessons, but particularly this one today. Just saying, this God of cruelty that manifests in the exterior as all these oppressive systems. What will the God of cruelty then plays out in the government systems and the legal system, in the natural world is cruel. Survival of the fittest. These systems are the work of the God of cruelty and death. And this must be confronted in our minds and challenged and undone. You say, no, this isn't true. It can't be true, because only pure formless awareness of perfect love is true. And we stand on that spiritual truth. All right, where were we? Now my eyes belong to my true self. Have we read number 12? Did we read number 12? I think it's the penultimate paragraph. So read number 12 and then 13, which is a prayer.
Okay, I'll read this one. You can read the next one. Okay, let me bring it forward, enlarge it. Now my eyes belong to my true self, and it looks through them. Now my voice belongs to pure formless awareness of perfect love and echoes its voice. And now my heart remains at peace forever. I have chosen the presence in place of idols, and my attributes given by my source are restored to me at last.
So an idol is a false belief.
Okay. The call for perfect love is heard and answered. Now fear has made way for love, as pure formless awareness of perfect love itself replaces cruelty.
In the original, there's Christ and God, the call for God. So just as an experiment, read the original and see how that feels to you.
Now do your eyes belong to Christ, and he looks through them. Now your voice belongs to God and echoes his. And now your heart remains at peace forever. You have chosen him in place of idols, and your attributes given by your Creator are restored to you at last. The call for God is heard and answered. Now has fear made way for love, as God himself replaces cruelty. Yeah, it's perfectly put. Making a definite commitment to stand in your truth, remain at peace forever, and recognize who you really are, and live with love, not fear. Make that choice.
But it requires courage to face this whole thought system down and go, no, this isn't true. For talk, and there's been anyone who's really done something great. What's the mark of greatness? Greatness is the ability to face and overcome fear by going into higher awareness. And the people who've done that, they become the way showers in this world. Out of the thought system of fear and guilt and sin and attack into the light. And so people like Martin Luther, you could say he had greatness. You don't remember the prince and the pope of the time. They had no greatness. They didn't overcome the ego in the same way. But you remember these people, not because of their titles and their status in the world and their positions, but because of the spiritual understanding and acting on that understanding. It wasn't I get it intellectually. Martin Luther was beyond a theologian because he actually put his life on the line and he walked the talk. That's way beyond what most theologians would do. So, it's the acting out of the love in opposition to the fear, which in times gone past, some of these systems have been incredibly harsh and cruel. You look at they would in the Middle Ages, they would burn people at the stake. I don't know what they were going to do to Martin Luther, but it probably wouldn't have been a very nice death. However, they killed him. Yeshua was crucified. Brutal, just awful. To do that to any human being, it's just awful. So they, they had to face it. Now we live in a relatively civilized age where that kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. The system can still be cruel, but okay, so you go to prison and, you live in a not so comfortable cell and you get, poor food and have to deal with the bed bugs and the other prisoners, but, they're not going to kill you. But so, we are the beneficiaries of these great men and women who walked the path before us, and they showed the way. Said, this is the way. And it wasn't easy for them. People go, oh, they were just great by some default. No, they had to make choices, difficult choices. Like Martin Luther. Imagine being told, right, you've got to recant your entire life's work or you're going to die. And you've got a few hours to decide. Come back this afternoon and give us your answer. Wow. I mean, talk about pressure.
You feel so alone in that situation because it's all of them with your fear against you standing alone in your truth, in the light.
Yeah, but he had to find God. So that's when, when his hour of greatest need, he found the Holy Spirit and he communicated directly. And the presence came to him and said, I'm with you, trust me, and you cannot recant. Because there's a process. You see, that 1 month plan worked in his mind. There's a process to this. Your part in this at 1 month is to stand your ground so that the light can come in. It can liberate the minds of millions of people in Europe and around the world through this reformation that you're going to kick off.
Yeah.
If he'd recanted, quite possibly the reformation wouldn't have happened. Maybe it would have in another way, but not in the way that it played out, because people were, oh, well, he's recanted. So now, all of his books would have been withdrawn. We're like, okay, he doesn't believe in this anymore, just burn his books. And, largely probably his life would have been consigned to the dustbin of history. We're like, well, you never heard of him because he recanted and he would have been a footnote in history. But because he stood his ground and he challenged the church and he said, no, I'm correct. Spiritually, he was correct. And the entire system that was facing him was incorrect. But I mean, that's real courage to stand up to the whole system and go, I'm right and you're wrong, because I have the spiritual truth behind me, and you guys have lost the plot, and you've departed from that. And to have the courage of your conviction to do that. So this is what he's hopefully inspiring us to do in this lesson. Say, well, stand in your true self, stand in the light. Face down this cruel thought system and realize that it's illusory, and it actually is very weak because it's based on untruth. So untruth can always be undone, and when it's challenged by the truth, it crumbles. It can't face the truth.
Yeah. Well said.
This is what I saw in my experience. The magistrate could not face the truth. So he had to walk out because he wasn't prepared to face someone who was in the truth, in the light. Okay, and I'm not just going to bow down to you because you're supposedly the magistrate and the system's given you some kind of authority over me. No, we stand in spiritual truth here. The authority is truth, not your authority. Your worldly authority is nothing in the truth.
Amazing.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my source, I am like you. No cruelty lives in me, for there is none in you. Your peace is mine. I bless the world with what I've received from you alone. I choose again and make my choice with all my companions, knowing they are one with me. I bring them your freedom as I have received it now, and I give thanks for them who make me complete. I perceive your magnificence and find my peace in them. I am innocent because your pure formless awareness Put in perfect love there. Your pure formless awareness of perfect love has set me free. And so I give thanks. Amen, which means so be it, or so it is. So it is. You know that's what amen means.
Yes, yes, I do.
So it is. And so it is. So just you missed a bit of the sections. So do you want to read the summary?
I recognize that when I believe that attacking and hurting
Others.
attacking and hurting others brings me freedom and safety, I deceive myself. However, these defense actions only serve to reinforce my belief in separation, fragmenting my mind and depriving me of peace. This defensive approach transforms love, which is my true self, into a perceived enemy, and cruelty becomes a false god that I value for protection. In reality, this God is nothing but a lifeless, powerless belief. I realize the futility of asking it for safety or strength. This realization can be terrifying, yet it also signifies my liberation from my enslaving belief in separation. The fear of perfect love, the ultimate obstacle to my peace, is merely an illusion that makes fear a god to me.
Okay, just pause it there. So any thoughts on that so far? What's he saying here in summary?
I don't know, I wasn't concentrating while I was reading it, but basically what we've been dealing with above.
Oh. So really just saying this, you know, the thought system of defense and attack is a thought system of cruelty. And this is now become a false god that I value for protection. So we turn to the thought system of fear and attack as some kind of refuge and safety, which is what we should be doing. You know, we should be turning to love, but instead we turn to its opposite. And so now fear becomes our God that we love, and love becomes fearful. I think that, you know, real true love is actually fearful, and we stay as far away from it as possible within the ego's clutches. So everything is upside down, topsy-turvy, backwards, and that's why the world is so upside down and backwards, because it's an upside down thought system that's created it and that continues to perpetuate it. The fear of perfect love, the fear of God, is the ultimate obstacle to my peace, in an illusion that makes fear a god to me. So by fearing perfect love, which is what we are, we now enthrone fear as a god, and now we value fear and that resistance to love, which is all fear is, over love itself. And our mind is split, and we are separated from our source in our own minds. Okay, so today I choose not to call.
Today I choose not to call this false belief my God any longer, freeing myself from the oppression of its blind perception. Now my true self can perceive truly, speak for me, and remain in peace. I hear the call for perfect love, which completely replaces the cruelty that was once there. Just like my source, I have no cruelty within me and experience only peace, recognizing our unity. I share this awakening with all my companions. They complete me, and through them I perceive the magnificence of perfect love and find peace. In the whole aware moment, I am set free by pure formless awareness of perfect love, for which I am eternally grateful.
Okay. Thoughts on that? What's he
Yeah.
saying in the last couple of
So,
paragraphs?
our true self can perceive truly and remain in peace, because I hear the call for perfect love. Just like my source, no cruelty, I experience only peace, recognizing our unity. And then it's important that we alert our companions to this, because they are part of the oneness. They complete me. And together with them, I perceive the magnificence of perfect love and find peace. I'm set free by perfect love, for which I'm eternally grateful.
So there's always the idea of extending, isn't there? So I do it for myself, and then I extend
Others.
to others, and I see it in them. I perceive the magnificence of perfect love and find peace by perceiving it in others as well as in myself. So then I become a source of extension of it. And as you saw, in your experience this morning, that has a lot of power. You extended the pure formless awareness of perfect love outwards to the Malawian.
An innocent human being that had suddenly become a prisoner and a criminal.
Yeah. For really, all he's trying to do is earn a living, isn't he? He's just trying to feed his family. And, given the system, it's not surprising these guys, go and get illegal papers, because they can't get them legally. So then they're like, well, what do I do? So they find a way. And then the system says, well, now, you've broken the law. But that, again, that's not common law. That is statutory law. See the difference?
Yes.
Common law would say, have you stolen from someone? Have you killed anyone? Have you raped anyone? Have you murdered? These are common law crimes. They're not statutory crimes. Yeah, those are crimes because they cause harm to other people. So, yes, they need to be. There needs to be a system that doesn't allow those. But statutory law, that's all these invented law. Oh, you don't have the proper work permit, now you go to prison. No. That's all part of the false system that's been constructed by the ego over hundreds of years. And people don't see it. They think that statutory law is the law, but it's not. It's a made-up law that's been imposed on us by the powers that be to convince us that their thought system is true and that we are, bound to them. We owe them allegiance. We're not based on spiritual law at all. So this free man idea is one of the most threatening ideas for that whole system. Because if people started to wake up to it and they went, well, actually, maybe that's true. Maybe we're not bound by these laws. Who said because some politicians pass a law in Parliament, now I'm bound by that, but I had nothing to do with it. And does it even make any sense? I didn't even vote for them. So it's not based on spiritual law. And so all kinds of distortions come in, which then cause injustices and, all kinds of misery and pain and suffering, because it's not based on spiritual truth. And that's all part of this, this false God and this false system that he's saying, must be undone in your mind. You cannot give allegiance to the system and also honor God. It says, it's one or the other. which is why, you see these great men in history have stood on spiritual truth, and they stand against the systems of their time. They say, no, this is wrong, because they don't reconcile. Okay, and then just a key message. So that's just a short, sweet overall summary.
Recognizing that defense and attack cannot free me and make me safe, I choose to free myself from my belief in separation and its resulting cruelty. I choose instead to accept pure formless awareness of perfect love, my source. Sharing this awakening with others, I perceive their unity with me, and I experience our shared magnificence and peace. Yeah.
Yeah, so a great lesson for today, given your experience. That's exactly what you did. You shared the awakening, you extended, and there was a miraculous outcome.
I mean, this text is definitely coming from a higher source, because there's no way you or me could have orchestrated this, and we are alone in this together. You had your prison experience, and it's wow, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
One has to bow in reverence to the namaste that exists between all human beings and between God and man.
But it's all part of the at-one-ment plan, you see. And so you see it playing out real time, like in these sessions, and you go, wow, this is amazing. Because look at how it works. Look at how it plays out. And you can only be in awe. It's perfection. It's like, well, yes, there's a reason why we're here right now, speaking on our own together, doing this lesson together. It's like, it's not an accident. It's part of the whole plan. And when you align with that plan, then you align with the power, the ultimate power of the universe. So the power beyond all powers. That's really driving everything towards it at one-ment.
Yeah.
And that is a world-changing power that can and will change all the corrupt systems of the ego, completely undo them. I think we're in a time of that happening. We're actually going to live through that.
Yeah.
We're living through it. It is happening.
Yeah.
It seems to be slow, but I think in our lifetime, the system's going to change fundamentally, radically.
COVID was the start of it, and it's moving very fast now because the chaos is almost unbearable, and the light is starting to shine through of the new way.
Yeah, so that's the way it goes. As the old systems break down and there's chaos, then a new order emerges. And that's exactly what happened in Europe 500 years ago. It was chaos. It wasn't a smooth transition at all. This was like riots, social riots and upheaval, and all this stuff went on for years. As a new configuration was found. The old power of the church was overthrown, and this new nascent force of really free thinking. The Illuminati who came into power at the time were the ones who were they called themselves the Illuminati because they were the enlightened ones. They were the antidote to the oppressive energy of the church. But they've now become the oppressors. This thought system of scientific materialism has become an oppressive dogma in itself. And so again, that needs to be challenged, and then it's the next stage. Okay, well then we go, Ken Wilber talks about integral and holistic and beyond. You go into integral thinking and holistic thinking. And that's where society's heading. And so the structures that were created out of out of the old system, out of the old thinking, have to change, because that's how it works. It's all interconnected. If you start fundamentally shifting on the interior level, then that will create change on the exterior. And if millions of people are doing that, which they are, then the systems, have to change, and that feels like very unstable, because the old systems are like rattling and creaking and shuddering, and it's like everyone's like, oh, the world's going to end. No, just the world as we know it. These false systems that have come to dominate our lives and our thinking will be undone, and a new way will be found that is based on spiritual truth, so that people can see this. Look, this works better. If you live according to truth rather than falsehood, then it works so much better. Miracles are possible. South Africa is a good example, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Lots of untruth. I mean, the apartheid was, separation says it all. It was untruth, disaster of a thought. It doesn't work. Then we have Mandela coming in with the light, the light of forgiveness and truth. And for a while that shone through while he was, in power. That shone through, and there was hope. It was like, wow, actually this could work, if we all stay in this light. And then of course the darkness comes in again and says, no, we can't have that. So now we've got to go back into separation, but now it's just reverse separation. Well, still it's the same separation, but it's like, oh, well, now we'll favor another race group. Instead of favoring whites, you then favor blacks. But it's the same thing. It's just separation. It's just apartheid, which just means separation. And that conceptually, that's never going to work. You can't base any kind of functional society on a thought system separation. That's what we've got to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Malawians will be kept out, and yet some of them have come in, and I mean, it's just beyond logical thought to understand what is going on in South Africa.
Well, it's because it's insane. The ego is insane, and you see at the extreme of that it doesn't make any sense. And that's a valuable lesson. You look in the mirror of that and you go, well, this is totally insane. It doesn't make any sense at all. And for those spiritually awakening like us, you go, okay, well, that's just confirmation of what, this message is, that the world is insane. In other countries, it just seems to be a bit more sane because things sort of seem to work better. So there's an illusion of some kind of sanity, isn't there? But actually, it's still insane. It's all insane.
It's all insane.
The whole system's insane, yeah. And humanity is destroying itself. We're doing the hurtling towards our own destruction. If we continue on this track, there's no way we're going to be around in another 1,000 years. We'll destroy ourselves as a species, because that's what the death wish of the ego wants. Unless there's a fundamental change, spiritual change, and we find a better way, a higher way, which is the opportunity. And I think in this, in our lifetimes, in this time, this is when it's happening. This is a great change in human history that we're living. And so we become the actors, like the Yeshuas of years gone by and Martin Luther. We become the actors in the drama. We have to play it out. No one else is going to do it. We here, and we've got to listen to the spirit and ask for guidance
and shine the light.
Yeah, which is quite exciting, actually. It's like, okay, well, bring it on then. That's what I'm here for. That's what it's all about. So bring it on. I'm up for the challenge. And, you call on the light to help you. When COVID happened, went through a bit of a dark night of the soul for a couple of weeks as I figured out what was going on. And I'd known about the whole New World Order, Illuminati, that years ago, but I'd kind of forgotten about it because it's like, well, you get on with your life. And then it all came up again. It was like this darkness of the ego trying to press me and take me into fear. And it's like, well, what's the point of even continuing? As a part of me was like, well, why even continue on this ridiculous, this ridiculous planet? It's crazy. Just exit now. But then, after a couple of weeks of that, it dawned on me that this was exactly the time that I was born for. I was born to do this. So this was my destiny unfolding, and I was wanting to check out of it and go, okay, I'm out of here. I can't handle it. It's like, well, hang on, this is what your whole life purpose is. This is why you came.
Thank
So
God you found out.
best you step up and just and do it. Allow yourself to be used as a channel for the awakening. That's the whole point. That's why you've done everything you've done. That's your preparation. Your entire life has been your preparation for this moment. And then you go, okay, well, game on now. Okay, now it really starts. Everything's been training up to now. Now it's the game really starts. And very that was when at that time, I just started the art of letting go, and it was like, okay, this inspired me to keep going and bring this into the world. And like, okay, well, this needs to come into manifestation through me, and a community needs to develop, and it's still very embryonic, but this will grow because the spirit is behind it, and the message needs to be heard.
Yeah, we've got to find a way to.
Well, the fact that I'm still here 5 years later, I mean, it's a miracle. Like, how did this happen? It's been supported, it's been guided the whole way, and it's still going, and it will continue because grace is with it. The light is, Holy Spirit is guiding it. So
So I'm going to bow out now, if you don't mind. I don't know what the time is, but it's very dark. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, it's 9:30 your time. So.
And Elaine didn't come back, so
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she had internet trouble. I don't know. She was here a very short time, and then
gone.
Oh, must be internet or something. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Christine, for joining. It's a good session, and I will see you tomorrow, I hope. Thought maybe we could. What's your plan tomorrow? I could do a evening session or an afternoon one.
I've got a trauma release exercise session at 7 to 8:30.
Okay. So maybe we should do would you join an afternoon one?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do 1:30 your time tomorrow.
Okay.
All
right. Good.
See you then.
See you then.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
Okay. You sure you don't want to do a meditation before you go?
No, I'm very hot in the face now. I must go to sleep.
Okay.
Blood pressure's rising or something.
As a spirit.
Maybe.
The fire of the spirit, they call it.
Good night. You do the meditation on your own.
All
Bye.
Right. Okay, Christine. All right. So let's do meditation on this section, personalized executive summary. All right, so this is a meditation on the personalized executive summary and key message of today's lesson 170. So just making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight, cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in. Drawing the energy up your spine into your heart center. You can put one hand on your heart to connect with your heart space. And draw the energy up into the crown of your head. It's pausing at the top of the inhale, so it's a maximal inhale breath. So just hold the light. Scan your mind in that light of true awareness, and any negative thoughts and emotions, related body sensations, just look at those. So any fear, attack thoughts, this lesson's all about defense and attack and fear. So notice any of that. Feels like a very heavy, dark, oppressive energy. So breathe into it. Breathe the light in. Imagine you breathing a golden white light into every pore, your body, every cell, every muscle, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the light. In the light of truth, in the light of love, in which there can be no fear. So you exhale and just release. So help with your breath, imagine you blowing away darkness out of your body, out of your mind, out of your energy system. It's going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. Just release it. And rest in the light of your true awareness. So just breathing in and out through your nose now. As you breathe in, and listen to me speaking these words from the personalized executive summary and key message of this lesson. Pause, you hold the breath briefly as I speak, and then as you exhale out through your nose, you speak the words as an affirmation of the profound truths in this lesson. And I'll guide you through that in the first few sentences, just so you get into the rhythm of it, and then I'll leave you to do it on your own. So take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Notice how the stomach rises, the chest rises. Pause at the top of the inhale as you listen to these words. So I recognize when I believe that attacking and hurting others brings me freedom and safety. So exhale out through the nose and just repeat those words out loud, ideally as an affirmation. I recognize that when I believe that attacking and hurting others brings me freedom and safety, I deceive myself. Breathing in again. However, these defensive actions only serve to reinforce my belief in separation. And you exhale out through the nose and repeat those words aloud. These defensive actions only serve to reinforce my belief in separation. Breathe in again, fragmenting my mind and depriving me of peace. Exhale, just speak those words. Breathe in again. This defensive approach transforms love which is my true nature, into a perceived enemy. And cruelty becomes a false god that I value for protection. Breathing in again. So just breathing in and out. Breathe in as I speak the words, and hold the breath briefly as I speak them, and then exhale out through the nose and speak the words in the gaps that I leave. Breathing in, hold the breath. In reality, this God is nothing but a lifeless, powerless belief. It's God with a little g. Exhale as you speak that. Breathe in again. I realize the futility of asking it for safety or strength. Breathe in. This realization can be terrifying. It also signifies my liberation from my enslaving belief in separation. And exhale as you speak those words. It's liberation from enslavement is being offered to you. Breathe in. Fear of perfect love. The ultimate obstacle to my peace is merely an illusion that makes fear a god to me. And exhale as you speak those words. Just naming the ego for what it is here, Yeshua, helping us to see very clearly what this thought system entails. So today, as you breathe in, I choose not to call this false belief my God any longer. And free myself from the oppression of its blind perception. Breathe in again. Now my true self can perceive truly, speak for me, and remain in peace. I hear the call for perfect love, which completely replaces the cruelty that was once there. Breathe in again. Breathe in the source, perfect love. To every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind. It's in the source. Say, just like my source as you breathe in, I have no cruelty within me and experience only peace. Breathe in that peace. To every part of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is infused with peace. Recognizing our unity, I share this awakening with all my companions. So I awaken to peace and I extend it out. So exhale and have a sense of extending this peace. Your inner state of peace and calm can extend to others. They complete me. And through them, I perceive the magnificence of perfect love and find peace. In the wholly aware moment, I am set free by pure formless awareness of perfect love, for which I am eternally grateful. So the key message, which is just a summary of the summary, is that recognizing defense and attack cannot free me and make me safe. You breathe in, repeat those words, recognizing defense and attack cannot free me and make me safe. You exhale, breathe in again. I choose to free myself from my belief in separation and its resulting cruelty. Breathe in again. I choose instead to accept pure formless awareness of perfect love, my source. Exhale the truth of that. Sharing this awakening with others, receive their unity with me and experience our shared magnificence and peace. And so just surrender into this experience of shared magnificence, the inner magnificence, the light of truth, pure formless awareness of perfect love. These words just point you to an inner state that is beyond words. So try and go into that state, surrender to that state, wholly, fully, and completely. For the next couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, and be still. Surrender into the stillness of light. The next 2 minutes of deep silence. Sink into the peace that awaits you beyond the god of cruelty, beyond fear and defense and hatred and attack. Everything the ego has made to cover it over lies. Peace of God, it's been called the peace of pure formless awareness. That surpasses all understanding. Listen to this prayer to take you into that peace from this lesson. My source, I am like you. Repeat it after me. No cruelty lives in me, for there is none in you. Just repeat those words as an affirmation. Your peace is mine. I bless the world with what I have received from you alone. I choose again and make my choice for my companions, knowing they are one with me. I bring them your freedom as I have received it now. And I give thanks for them who make me complete. Receive your magnificence and find my peace in them. I am innocent because your pure formless awareness and perfect love has set me free. And I give thanks for that. So it is. Amen. So you just rest in this state of peace, gratitude, light, perfect love. It's all just pointers to the one state, perfection. It's the ultimate source and the destination of all minds, to become one with this awareness, pure formless awareness of a love so perfect we cannot intellectually conceive of it, can only surrender to it and experience it, which is why ultimately all spiritual experience becomes mystic. It's purely experiential, beyond words, concepts, ideas. So allow yourself to surrender into the mystery. Go beyond rational understanding into the truth in your own experience of pure formless awareness, perfect love, and the deep peace it brings you in the moment, eternal now moment. Surrender into that for the next couple of minutes of deep, peaceful, blissful silence. So just gently coming back from this deep, peaceful, connected state. It's an awareness of the body and the breath, senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in. Noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale, scan your mind once more. Notice any thoughts, any emotions, related body sensations going on. Particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Just going to blow those out. Exhale. Breathe them out. The breeze of your breath to the nothingness that they really are. And going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And you rest. In perfect love. On the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling and touching. Your hands, maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. Just notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things. It's a very still, calm and surrendered state. State of mind beyond illusions. State of truth. So you're connected to your source even while senses are coming back. So you notice weight of your body pressing down into the chair, feet touching the ground. Notice you're smelling as you breathe in. Notice any subtle taste in your mouth. Notice what you're feeling with your hands, your body. Notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Noticing all these things from this very still, calm and surrendered state. I'm going to anchor the state in for the rest of the evening, on into tomorrow. I hope you do that. You can listen to short breath break I've sent you. Just a few minutes to reconnect with this deep peace that hopefully you've experienced quite deeply over the last 27 minutes or so. Or just remind yourself of today's lesson that there's no cruelty in perfect love and none in need. Simple, quick reminder to help you access the power of perfect love. Let go of any cruel thoughts of the ego. Follow the instructions I've given you to do that in your email and Telegram message. So it is said, so it is done. On the count of 3, open your eyes now. Just take a minute to look around. So observing the various objects in the room around you in this very calm, peaceful, detached state. Look at any object randomly selected. Notice the peace that underlies your perception of it. Don't have to name it, judge it, label it, interpret it in any way. You just rest in the underlying peace. And then look at another object and notice that it's exactly the same awareness, exactly the same peace you're experiencing. Close your eyes, notice the peace is the same whether your eyes are closed or open. Look at another few objects for a few seconds at a time and notice the same peace underlies all of them. And in this way, you come to learn that there's only one awareness, one source of peace, and it is always there. So brings to mind lesson number 30, the workbook of Course in Miracles, which states that God is in everything I see. Or translated, perfect love is in everything I see, because God or perfect love is in my mind. It's in your mind, in your awareness. So it must be then in everything which your mind perceives, because it's the very foundation of your mind, out which your mind could not exist. So love is your essential quality, your essential nature, without which nothing else could exist. It's the foundation, the ground of being, underlies all sense perceptions, all perception, in fact, sits on top of this ground of being. It's like the movie screen, which all the images are projected, they sit on top of it, but the screen is beyond them, and when the images stop, then the screen remains. Same way the ground of being, perfect love, is always there. It can never not be so. You can never not have this awareness. It's quite impossible. So you're going to stay grounded and rooted in this ground of being, in this awareness. Use today's lesson to help you do that. You might want to top yourself up on time before bed by listening to the longer meditation I sent you this morning on the lesson, or this meditation again. So brings us to the end of the meditation and of tonight's session. So thank you to Christine, briefly Elaine, joining. Good session, some great material, and some great inspiration. So I hope you enjoyed it, and join us tomorrow if you're in the community from 12:30 UK time, 1:30 SA time, or if you're not, join us for the next masterclass next Sunday. It's coming Sunday. Put a link below to find out more and register for that. If you'd like to join these live sessions and experience a touch of grace yourself. So namaste. Thank you for joining, and hope to see you soon. Namaste, which means the peace, divine peace and love in me acknowledges and honors that same love and peace in you.